Well, let's go now to Canberra and we'll speak to Dr. John Blaxland. Now, he's a terrorism expert with the Australian National University. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us. What's your interpretation so far of what we know?
Thank you, Rachel. Look, the situation is quite grave, but I think it's important to keep it in perspective and put this in the context of similar events elsewhere. This is a phenomenon that echoes what happened to a certain extent like in New York in 2001, but perhaps more akin to what happened in London in 2005 on the 7th of July. Where multiple incidents occurred, multiple bombings took place, dozens were killed, hundreds were injured. This also echoes what happened in Mumbai in 2008, where a terrorist group coordinated their actions with about 12 incidents around Mumbai. It also has echoes in Russia. In the kinds of terrorist activities we've seen there that are connected with the developments in Chechnya and extremist behaviour reacting to the government actions in Chechnya as well. So there's a number of instances close at home for Australia. Of course, we have the incidents with Bali, the Bali bombing, which saw a couple hundred people killed in 2002, another bombing in Jakarta in 2003, a bombing again in Bali in 2005. So there is a pattern of international incidents where extremists take it into their own hands to pursue their political and other objectives. It's very interesting to reflect, though, on what's happened here, though, in that what we're seeing is, the French counter-terrorism expertise is par excellence, if you like. It's really superior. The French have been masters of counter-terrorism since before the Algerian War in the 1950s and 1960s. So to see this kind of activity happen, particularly after Charlie Hebdo, where it's actually happened below the radar scope, where the terrorists have acted in a way that was not able to be detected by all of the spectrum of surveillance and monitoring systems available to the French state, that this went below that radar. This is, I think, one of the most disturbing aspects of this because, remember, you think about the experience from Mumbai, the experience from London, the experience from Bali. There's been iterative evolution of and increased sophistication of monitoring and surveillance techniques and capabilities available to states, particularly ones linked to, in the West. And France is amongst the leading powers in terms of its sophistication in ability to monitor extremist groups and potential terrorist activities. So for this to happen is kind of a new benchmark, if you like, and it's a very disturbing development, one that it's not surprising that French President Hollande has called for a state of emergency. It's quite a reasonable response under the circumstances.
What do you think about the nature of this attack? We've obviously reports of explosions, hostages being taken, multiple locations. What does that say about what these people who are responsible are trying to achieve?
Well, look, I think we need to keep it in mind in terms of there's a couple of possibilities. One is that this is a very sophisticated group that's acting in concert, akin to what we saw in Mumbai in 2008. But then again, it's quite possible that we could see it much closer akin to what we saw in London in 2005. So we need to be careful about not jumping the gun in terms of reflecting on what level of expertise or coordination that may be involved here. This could be simply a gang of people, a group of people who decided to act together on the one night and not having breached that detection threshold, if you like, in terms of how they were perceived by the various intelligence and surveillance monitoring systems. And the fact that it wasn't detected does suggest this is either a pretty unsophisticated group of people who just decided to act in unison, or a remarkably sophisticated level of coordination by people who are attuned to the weaknesses of the surveillance system and of the security system of the French state at the moment, and were able to work between the cracks, if you like, to work out a way to attack at these various sites in a coordinated manner without triggering a reaction in anticipation that would have nipped it in the bud beforehand.
Obviously, multiple attacks in multiple locations. Do you think it's likely that there will be more in coming hours?
You know, if we look at the trend from previous incidents, if you look at the incidents from London in 2005, Mumbai, even New York in 2001, Bali bombings, etc., there's a certain critical mass that you can surge to get to this point. Beyond that, it's actually very hard to sustain while not being detected. So my sense is that we're probably, you know, we don't know for sure, but going on past track record of these kind of incidents, it would point to this being kind of, we have reached the apex, if you like, of this wave, and that we're probably seeing that is now on the decline for now. And that the French state authorities now are in a position to try and pick up the pieces and catch the various players and the supporting people behind the actual players who carried out the incidents around Paris. But it's very complicated. It's, you know, we don't even have anybody really claiming responsibility for this at this stage. You know, this is the kind of thing that we've seen associated with violent extremist groups such as Daesh, but we haven't seen that declared by anybody. And while there have been, you know, reports of somebody calling out Allah Akbar, pardon me, that is not, you know, at this stage doesn't really tell us very much at all about what kind of group we're dealing with here.
I'm speaking with Dr. John Blaxland. He's a terrorism expert with the Australian National University. On that point of responsibility, are you surprised that no group has claimed responsibility yet, or would you assume that it is too early?
Well, you know, it depends on what their objectives are, what the group's objectives are. It may well be quite convenient to simply not declare one's hand in this instance and to actually leave the situation as confused as it is. If the objective is to simply, you know, ruffle the feathers, if you like, of the French state. Remember, France has been pretty actively involved in the Levant. It's got combat aircraft flying missions over Syria. It's got a long history of involvement in Lebanon. It's got a pretty significant historical connection with this part of the world. And there are so many potential players who could have a vested interest in getting at France over this instance. It could simply be, you know, a further manifestation of the kind of resentment and marginalisation of many groups inside France in the banlieues, the rural, the estates that have been set up on the rim of places like Paris, where there's a lot of disenfranchised, unhappy, hopeless people who are resentful and looking to lash out. There's so many factors yet we still don't know about that we really can't speak with authority about what the implications are in terms of what this means in terms of how the French state can respond, and even if there are further international ramifications in terms of beyond France, be it in other parts of Europe, in Britain, or you know, closer to Australia.
Okay. Dr. John Blaxland from the Australian National University, thank you so much for your insights.
My pleasure, Rachel.